Hi guys, welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. And today I'm going to be reviewing Boosh, Hawkwood's Voyage, Book 1 of the Monarchies of God series, quintet, I guess, by Paul Kearney. So this is a bind-up of the first two books in that. That's why it's called Hawkwood and the Kings instead of just Hawkwood's Voyage. But so I've read the first half of this book, which is that first book, and that's because like the books are like out of print separately, so it's hard to find the individual ones. Well, the covers are ugly anyway. I don't like the way the covers look on the individual books, so these are better. Anyway, without wasting any more time, let's get down to business. Let me tell you what I thought of Hawkwood's Voyage. So, this book is very much an Allen book. Cue the gif like this is a Allen book and a nobody else kind of book. There are so many things in here that are just, like, built for me. It is almost historical fiction, but there is magic, and a lot of it really feels like it is based on real events. We've got the West, which is, you know, basically Europe, and it's in a period of kind of the Inquisition, and there's this age of exploration kind of feel, as well as, you know, the fall of great cities like Constantinople, the advance of the Ottoman Turks, or just it is clearly based and drawn from history, if not a one-for-one, then definitely, Kearney is definitely a student of history. We know this because his other series is the 10,000, which is about the Greeks and Xenophon trying to fight their way out of Persia after getting stuck there. So, right off the bat, I love historical fiction that deals with military and war, and the premise of Hawkwood's Voyage is obviously that there's a voyage taking place, but that's really only 1/3 of the plot going on. There are 3 plot threads in Hawkwood's Voyage. So we've got, at the very beginning of the book, the holy city Ikir, which I think of as, I think of it as Constantinople. It's just major city, kind of capital of the West. It has fallen, and everyone thought it was impenetrable, indestructible, and it fell to the advance of the Eastern Merduks, which are the Sultanate. There's like 7 sultans of the Merduks, and they're advancing westward. And like 30 years ago, their first kind of foray was repelled by the 5 kingdoms, which are called the Monarchies of God. And so each one of them is ruled by a different king, and there's a prelate in each one that represents the kind of the Remusian Church, which is basically the Catholic Church, obviously. And so Ikir has fallen, and it's in flames, and there is this mass exodus west of the refugees fleeing to kind of the next stronghold, which everyone is certain is going to fall to the Murdoch horde. And so because this holy city fell over in the westernmost country, which is Hebrion, the church has instigated these purges, these pogroms, where they round up all of the kind of the wizards, or, you know, wise men, or herbalists, or soothsayers, or Dweemo crafters, all of them, and they just start burning them because, one, the prelate of Hebrion is trying to make his move in a bid for power, but ostensibly because, well, that's why Ikir fell. Any of these people could be working for the Merduks. So it's, you know, purging anybody of darker skin color, as well as all the wizard people, because, oh, well, they're foreigners, they must be helping, or, oh, this is what happens when we don't follow what the church says, or whatever. So there's these huge purges, and so because of this, the king of Hebrion, Abilene, who was this young guy, his dad was super pious, and he's just like, why are these people, like, burning my citizens? He decides to make a play and send this guy named Richard Hawkwood, he's just a sailor who is hired out to, you know, transport goods, whatever. And they have an expedition, and they pilot with a bunch of the wizards who are escaping, and they head west toward this unheard of continent that no one's ever been to, but that theoretically may or may not exist. It's a mythical continent to the west, and this feels like, hey, pile on, go find America. And so that is one plot. One plot is that voyage to the west, and Hawkwood and the ships and that naval voyage. And then you have the plot of Abilene and the other kings, and this kind of political intrigue versus the church, as the church makes, you know, this bid for power over the kings, like this kind of tug of war on who's going to who is actually in control, like the church or the monarchies. So there's that plot as well. And then there is the refugees heading west from Ikir, and the main viewpoint character of that is a a deserter named Corfey, who was a member of the main defense force of Ikir, but deserted after their head, John Mogan, fell, and so he's, trying to, I guess, redeem himself, or find a worthy death for himself. And so those are basically the three plots, and honestly, The Voyage West is mostly my least favorite of the plots. One, because I don't really like Hawkwood. Hawkwood is just like, it's like whatever, Hawkwood. Like, I don't, first of all, you have to understand that characterization is not really Kearney's strong point. None of these characters are really well defined. I don't really know a ton about them. A lot of this is because it is weird to read a book in third-person omniscient, almost, because we're so used to fantasy these days being that third-person limited or first-person. But this book was written in 1995, back when third-person omniscient was way, way, way more common. And so, because of that, we have this kind of distant view of people. So this is much more about events and things that are happening than it is about the characters. So if you are like, oh, I can only read character-driven novels, then you're not going to like it. Doesn't matter what kind of cool stuff happens. You're not going to care because there's no one sitting around philosophizing, watching paint dry. And for that, I apologize. But the stuff that's happening is so freaking cool. The Voyage West has some like cool horror elements, which I like because the prologue deals with 130 years ago a derelict ship that was found floating, and the whole crew was missing, and I was just like, what? This is awesome. But with the Voyage stuff, please understand that if you do not care about naval books, if you hate nautical fantasy, this has a lot of that. So much that it is definitely obvious that Kearney has spent time studying ships and has probably spent time on a ship. There is so much naval terminology in this book, as well as Kearney's vocabulary just in general. He used a bunch of words that either I have rarely seen, like I've heard, and I'm like, wow, it's been a long time since I've seen someone use that word, to words I haven't heard of, many of them ship-related. Here are some of the words that I wrote down that I just looked up and was like, oh, it's a cool word, or it's boat-related. So let's play a game. Which words are boat-related and which are just adjectives that you may not know what they mean. Tell me which ones you knew what they meant prior to looking them up, and don't cheat. So here we go. First of all, there's galley, caravel, galleon. I knew all of those. Those are ship-related. That's fine. But then we've got yawl, Y-A-W-L, not you-all. Carrack, felucca, glabrous, culverin, serried, tatterdemalion, which I had heard before. A really cool word. It just means tattered. Tatterdemalion, or someone who looks tattered. Chiaroscuro, or chiaroscuro, which is also a cool word. Latine, viand, hoy, galleus, bumboat, bollard, tertio, virago, barouche, bruit, contretemps, and indaba. And then I just stopped writing down. It's like, there's a lot of words I didn't know, but you could figure them out from context. Like, there weren't any that I wasn't able to figure it out. I was just like, I'm going to look up specifically what that word means. Regardless, the scenes on the boat they are enriched by how much Kearney knows about the naval stuff, because when things are happening on the boat and taking care of the boat and dealing with boat and like weather and things, I think it's easy to follow on what is happening, but it just feels very atmospheric. It adds to what is happening on the ship because he very clearly understands everything that's happening. And I think it enhances the book. Some of you might not. Like, some of you are like, just tell me it's on a boat and they're on the deck and it's fine. But just be warned, that is there. So Hawkwood's storyline deals with him and the noble who is commissioned to take this voyage, and some of the passengers. Another kind of major POV character is Bardolin, who is one of the wizards from Abruzio, from that city, that is on there, but he's kind of part of Hawkwood's storyline, so I didn't mention him to start with. And with that being said, the magic is really cool and kind of muted and understated. All we know is that there are 7 kind of schools of magic, and in order to become a mage, you have to have mastered or studied 4 of them. And one of them is kind of weatherworking. One of them is, one kind of magic is like shape-shifting, but I couldn't remember if that was one of them, and the people who shape-shift just can't master any of the other ones, or if Shapeshifting is outside the 7, and they're just not good at mastering any of the other ones. But we didn't really get a ton of information about the other ones, so I hope the magic system is more fleshed out in the upcoming books. But there's things like little imps and homunculi, which are like imps that are created not caring about where it's coming from, so kind of like the evil imps, and like falcons that mages can speak through over long distances. And so the magic is here, and the imps are cute. Everyone loves them, like scratch underneath their chin, and the imps like love to like rock around the ship and like eat rats and stuff. The imps are really cute. So the magic is there, but it is not prevalent, and there is definitely limitations on what wizards can do. So none of the wizards are infinitely powerful, so it never feels like their thumb is on the scale too much when things like battles are happening or people trying to, pull their butts out of the fire, that kind of thing. But what I really, really like about this book is the invasion of the Murdochs from the east and the political machinations of the kings, the five kings of the Monarchies of God, and the priests, because it is just maddening to watch. There is this invasion from the east, and there is a war within a war. Rather than focusing on defending against the invading hordes, instead, the church is making a power play and will literally sacrifice these cities in the east in order to increase its own power. And it's just ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous to watch the horse trading and the manipulations because theoretically the old High Pontiff, the Pope, died in the fall of Ikir, so these prelates are kind of vying for who's going to be the new pontiff, and just this idea that people will do anything for power, even sacrifice, like, their own countrymen. Like, I don't understand it. Like, what does it matter? Like, okay, let's say that you're the head of the church. Who cares if the entire freaking, like, West has been overrun by people who don't believe the same as you? They're going to destroy you and your church. Like, it's just maddening. And so the moves and counter moves and the idea of who actually rules, is a king really the ruler of his own nation if there are things that he can't do without the risk of being excommunicated by the church? And so this study of great power politics, I love studies of great power politics, as well as the infighting among the 7 sultans, and even the infighting among one sultanate, where we have generals who adhere to the old ways, which are kind of like these codes of honor, where there are certain ways that you conduct war, and there are certain things that you don't do. And so this conflict between the old and the new, it's just really, really interesting. And as you guys know, I love freaking sieges. There's a great siege in this one. I love watching, people try to stand against encroaching armies. It is a military fantasy, and that is my favorite part of this. And I just really, really enjoyed the story that was being told. Kearney makes this world feel lived in so much to where it's almost confusing at times to understand which nations are part of the Monarchies of God, which were formerly powerful, like which city is important, who these people were. I read a review that said the beginning feels kind of like Gardens in the Moon, and it kind of does, because it starts in the middle of it starts in the aftermath of a siege, and it throws a whole bunch of like names and places at you. Now, this book is not as well written as Steven Erikson's book, especially with the characters. They're not as interesting or as fully fleshed out, but it is that same kind of military, realistic, gritty feel that Erikson captures in the Malazan books. The main drawback of this book, and what keeps Hawkwood's Voyage from being a new favorite of mine, is there's a bunch of weird, like, sexy time stuff. I don't like explicit sexy time things. Like, I know it's a part of life, and I know that characters, have relations. I understand that. There is one character who is this noblewoman who is, using her body to get ahead, and I get it. But I don't like explicit sex scenes. If you're gonna talk explicitly about people's genitalia, I don't want to read it. Like, I don't want to read it. And there's the standard, like, conquering people and sexually assaulting survivors. Like, I understand that. Like, I get it. That happened in war. I understand. But it's just like it's just everything's. It's just gross. Like, none of it feels necessary, and it doesn't, like, it's not like, oh, this, look at the gritty realism of this. There's just, like, it's just gross. There's just gross stuff, and it's, some of the people are, like, young, and it's just gross, and it's not necessary, and some of the colorful language that Kearney uses to describe it is just not something, like, it's just gross imagery. I don't ever need to know what people's body parts look like. Like, I don't. Like, I don't. And I honestly don't understand where the need that authors feel like they need to describe people's intimate body parts in detail. Like, I don't really know what that adds. Like, I don't need like, I don't care. Anyway, it's not pleasant. So I did not like that really at all. And if that was not in there, man, like, this would definitely be a new favorite of mine. But that being said, I was able to just brush over it, be like, ugh, I hate this, and move on. Because the plot and everything that was happening and the political intrigue and just the scope of everything, I liked enough to where it did not really detract, other than me hating it and making sure people freaking know that. It has been a long time since because I've been reading this with my friend Angela, who hates everything. I knew she was going to hate it. And Katrina, and we had reading 5 chapters a day, and it was like midnight last night when I finished my 5 chapters, and I just stayed up till 2 in the morning finishing the last 5 chapters. And it's been a long time since I stayed up way too late finishing a book, so I was just so interested in knowing what was going on. And really, it is not really it's not really at all a standalone. It definitely leaves off, not like on a cliffhanger, but with pretty much everything unresolved. Some big declarations have been made, and we haven't seen the fallout of that. So I am excited to read the next book, which is called The Heretic Kings. So, Kearney's writing style is very, very descriptive, including in those weird scenes. So, I mean, I guess it's just, a carryover from his normal narrative writing. And the battle sequences and anything with the military, and even like the spooky horror sequences are written really well with appropriate tenseness. I think he's a very talented writer, and I haven't heard anybody talking about him, and I wish more people would. So especially if that weird sexy time stuff doesn't bother you and everything else sounds interesting, you should definitely pick up this book and tell me what you think about it. It's not super thematically deep. There's not a bunch of philosophizing on what, on what's going to be. It's a lot of like, well, who's really in charge? Are we going to stand here and take it, or what? Like, and, that kind of thing. And why are these people lesser citizens? I also like that we do get to see things from the other side, the side of the Murdochs. There are a couple POVs that take place on that other side, and we see how the Murdochs view themselves versus how the Westerners view them. The Westerners think they're just a barbarian, slathering horde. The Murdochs are actually really, really, like, pissed off that the Westerners burned the great library of Ikir as they left, because the Murdochs in their society, they really, really value knowledge and learning and books, and would not have done the same thing if the situations were reversed. And, like, their lands aren't just these, like, barbarian, uncivilized lands. Their lands look almost identical to the Western lands. They just have temples instead of churches. And so I really did like that. There's one character on the side of the Murdochs that I really, really like. But at any rate, I really like this book. If you hate nautical fantasy, do not read it. There is a bunch of nautical crap. 1/3 of the book is nautical, and it is like super nautical. So, on the Kingfin approval system, I give this book a superb. I'm giving it a superb minus because of weird, sexy stuff. So, superb minus, weird, sexy stuff. But the storyline and the plot, I was really, really invested in, and I can't wait to read book 2, The Heretic Kings. Out of 5 stars, I give it 5 stars. What? But you said you hated a large part of the book with the weird, sexy stuff. Yes, it was annoying. It doesn't change my enjoyment of the book. Yes, it does, because I would have enjoyed it more if it wasn't there. But it doesn't mean that, like, I wasn't riveted about what was going on. So, I was just like, ugh, and then moved on. 5-star book, in my opinion. I actually really, really liked this book. I love military fantasy. I love military fantasy that's, like, steeped in historical detail. It was just so good. It's so good. Have you read The Monarchies of God? did you enjoy it? And if not, you should definitely read it, because I haven't heard anybody like talking about Paul Kearney or this series like at all. But I loved it. I'll be reading The Heretic King soon because I definitely don't want to like lose that momentum. So I'll be reading it probably soon, but maybe February. Regardless, guys, thank you so much for watching. That is it for me for today. As always, information about my Patreon and Discord is down in the description, and I'll see you next time, guys.